Hello, honey bunnies. I'm back with another episode of Deep Chats. This time I'm talking to Arcane Panda, and I'm very, very excited. And I actually tried to get in touch with you a while before, didn't I? And then I rolled back around to you. I was like, do you really want? Can you come on for me? I was very, very like, I'm going to try again and just see if you pick up the email this time. And when you replied, I was fangirly, and I don't get fangirly very often. So thanks for coming on here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This is such a huge honor. And I was just telling my husband, I said, I think I've been watching your channel for 10 years now. And so, like, I remember when you had short hair, and I remember, like, just all of the old stuff. And so it's such a huge honor to be here. And thank you so much for circling back. Like, that life was so crazy at the time when you first contacted me. And so I was just like drowning in life, I think. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's lovely to know that you've been with me all that time. I've had quite the set of haircuts over the course of time. So yeah, it shows you've been watching me for a long time. If you remember when my hair was short, because that was a long time ago. Yeah, thank you so much. And also, yeah, I was always going to roll back around. I knew you were having a wild time. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to let things settle down and I'll come back because I have so many things I want to ask you. And I think I've watched your channel for as like, since pretty near its inception. I can't remember where I found you, like how I found you, but once I found you, I was hooked because you talk about so many things in relation to tarot, magic, spirituality, etc. that really do it for me. So yeah, it's I'm glad we found each other in this wild world of online tarot and witchy stuff. And that's mostly what I'm going to be asking you about today. I wanted to start by saying I love watching you talk about decks and talk about tarot, and I like watching all the views that you have on imagery and decks and stuff like that. So I wanted to ask you how you began your journey. When did you first pick up a deck? Like, how did it sort of arrive into your life?
Oh gosh. It's probably, it's been like probably 15 years. I'm old. And like I think my very first tarot deck, I actually this is not good. Don't do this. But my when I was very young, my very first deck I stole because it was very taboo and I didn't think I was supposed to have it. And um yeah, and it would just kind of went from like when you're a little girl. Have you ever seen the movie Matilda?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like Mrs. Trenchbull, and you like she can move things. She is so magical, and that saying that's like all the little girls that pretended to be Matilda, like they grew up to be like witches and tarot readers. Yeah, that I think that's kind of the progression. Like I was always just kind of a weird kid, and now I'm a weird adult, I guess. And it's just something that it started out like very fun. Um, and then as I got older and started like my own journey of healing, it just became a really in-depth tool. So it's kind of evolved over time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with Matilda, I've seen that meme that says all the little girls that watch Matilda grew up to be tarot readers and witches, and I was like, it's totally called out, and I'm totally okay with it. It's definitely a huge film for people that are witches now. We all went around trying to develop our telekinesis and like make chairs move and things like that. So yeah, I have exactly the same memories, exactly the same memories. And we've been playing with cards for about the same time, I guess. Yeah, a long time I've been playing around with cards for too. How did you get a deck when it was taboo? Did somebody hand you one or did you find it somewhere?
Yeah, it was like at a store. Like we had gone to town somewhere. Um, gosh, I wonder if I still have it. Now I've got so many. Um, and it didn't even, I think the deck buying kind of took off like more recently, and kind of during the pandemic. I think probably more, I've amassed more decks than I have like over my entire time of using decks, like just during the pandemic. I think it was definitely it kind of became like a comfort, you know, like I don't know. Yeah. the pandemic has been a weird time.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I for sure went very deep into a tarot practice of my own during the pandemic. It was yeah, it was a comfort. That's exactly the word I would use as well. It was a way to make sense of everything that was happening, and it's something that I always return to when I feel lost, confused, angry, all those emotions. But also, I just had more time, you know, by way of there not being anything to do and not being allowed to go anywhere. So yeah, I sat with my whole deck out on the floor from the full right through to the end and just like journeyed through everything and thought very, very deeply about each card in a way that I usually actually don't have time to, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely one of those things. What do you look for in decks now? Do you have a criteria? Are there things you expect from decks that you buy?
Um, yeah, more recently, I've started trying to really ask of diversity of my decks. Something that I wasn't able to do really until the last couple years, just because it wasn't available, that diversity, and featuring people of color. And now, um again, with the pandemic and people having more time, so many more people are creating decks and putting out decks. There's more decks than ever before, with people, with queer people, with Black people, with feminist decks, people of all shapes and sizes. And um that feels really good to me. Like, that really resonates with me. I feel like, especially on my journey of life and my spiritual journey, like, my body has been all different sizes, and like, I've created life and given birth, and these different things. And so I really enjoy the different diversities. Like, I picked up the self-love tarot is one that's really good, and then the fat folks tarot. Like, they're just really revolutionary. And so definitely asking diversity of the decks. I know that other people in the community say that it's not always they're not always able to do diversity, and I just don't think that that's I kind of think that that's bullshit, to be honest, just because the world is diverse. Like, it's something that it's just how the world exists. So I think it's okay to ask of diversity of your decks these days.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. And I think I would ask that to be qualified. Like, I would want someone to explain to me why a deck that is being made now wouldn't consider diversity as being something that would be intrinsic to its design. Because to me, unless you're actually using repros of an artistic tradition that only uses thin white people, you know, for example, like the Renaissance tradition or like the Art Nouveau tradition, maybe, which those things have been done. We've used Watergate, we've used these images already. Then anything else, if you are creating the images yourself, if you're only using white people, you're making a white supremacist fantasy deck, and there are so many of them. There's one right here next to me. You know, so I will never part with Rider Waite Smith, but I would never buy a deck like this again ever in my life, because we've done them to death now. We've done thin white able-bodied people for been the entire tarot tradition pretty much. So yeah, I would ask that to be qualified. If ever somebody said there was some reason why their own illustrations or their own concept didn't include diversity, I would be like, there has to be some reason for that, and it really better be good at this point, because how many more decks do we need like that?
Yeah, yeah. And so then asking that diversity has definitely, there's decks in my collection that I'm definitely going to be moving out now that there's, more things available. And then it's kind of slowed the buying, like when I started really looking into like how I feel about the images and the inclusivity and that kind of stuff. So then it kind of, I'm like, well, I can actually skip on this deck because I have so many others that are like that. So but it's nice to be able to pick up a deck and to see yourself and to be reflected in those images when you read for yourself and for when you read for other people. And because just I mean, I just didn't have that for years and years. And so it's really nice. I like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And because you're a pro reader, I'm a pro reader as well. The other thing is I need decks in my collection where the lovers are a gay couple. I need decks in my collection where people are like not white, because it's kind of like quite mortifying to me to be reading for someone and realize that like I don't have any deck that reflects them. I don't have any deck that they probably would want in their collection necessarily. So as a pro reader, it's also extremely useful that people are like, okay, we need different kinds of decks now.
Yeah.
Every so often I've had a giggle with a client where when we're talking about a same-sex relationship, and I'm like, I'm really sorry, I picked a deck that is super heteronormative right now. And it's like, it's fine, let's carry on. But I do have several decks I use, for example, for gay men, when we're talking about a relationship, that are so useful, that are full
Yeah.
of important queer imagery. So yeah, that stuff as a pro reader is also useful.
Well, yeah, because you read for all ages and people from all around the world, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you're going to have you should have a very diverse clientele, you know what I mean? And yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
so
always want that, and I've gotten it so far, so good. Yeah, because that would be when people ask me why I don't read face to face in my area. I always say two reasons. One, I want to be able to work from anywhere. So if I built a clientele here, that wouldn't work. Two, I live in one of the most homogenous parts of the country, like the one of the most sort of, I guess you could say it's the least racially diverse. It's much more racially diverse than it was 10 years ago. But from where I used to live in England to where I live now, big change, big change. I used to live in one of the most racially diverse parts of England. And I don't want to read for just the same type of person, or just the same economic experience, just the same like locale. Like it's a very specific
yeah,
location where I am now. So yeah, it'd be so strange if I just read for the same type of person over and over again. Obviously, everybody's different, but how you read online, I'm sure you'll agree, is like it's wild. I've read for people in Japan, like it's just fascinating. You
yeah.
can read for all kinds of people you'd never normally meet.
Yes, absolutely. And that is, for me, that's how I grow. Like, touching energies with all these different people from different walks of life. I mean, that helps me grow and be better.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Do you ever need to take breaks from all the card slinging stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. My practice, it really waxes and wanes. Like my tarot practice, my witchcraft, it's all really deeply tied to my mental health. And so, unfortunately, it does this. I would like to say that it's always this, but that's just not my reality. And I think, like, for anyone, life happens, and sometimes you just have to step away, and that's okay. There's no use reading if you don't have the energy to do it, if you're not really there and you don't have the clarity to do it, like there's really no sense in doing it. And so I recently I'm just coming back from having stepped away. Actually, my dad passed away over Christmas, and I just it really like put me down. And so I closed my door to the tarot room, and I had decks come in that I had backed like on Kickstarter, and they went unopened. I mean, they were still in the mailer, like in the package, because I just couldn't, I think when your energy is somewhere else, because right then I was like resting and grieving and healing. And yeah, so I definitely go through times where I have to just step back from it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really so sorry for your loss, and I think you did, of course, absolutely the right thing for yourself. It's so hard when you're trying to navigate your reality moment by moment, helping someone else navigate their reality. If you know yours is so hard right now, it can actually be unethical to carry on. And I've had several points in my pro reading journey where I think I took 6 weeks off once, or 8 weeks. It was a long time. It was like 2 months. I was like, I can't remember what it feels like to shuffle anymore. But I needed to do it. So I totally get you on that front. And then when you come back, you're refreshed and you're like chomping at the bit to do it more than ever. So it's good in the end. It does make sense. Do you have your own tarot room, and are you in it now?
Yes, yeah.
Um, that's really cool. I love all the bats behind you. They're amazing. And
Thank you.
I already said about the eye. I actually don't know how this is going to look, so I don't know how much people will be able to see the eye, but I love it. It's
Oh,
great. It's very
I'm
cool.
I'm super comfortable today. I've got like my blanket. It's like 5 in the morning here.
Mhm.
So I'm just like very comfortable today. I've got my coffee, my blanket. I was like, what a nice way. Friday the 13th is my luckiest day. It's my favorite day of the like favorite day. And so I'm like, what a perfect way to start out my Friday the 13th with Kellyanne Maddox. Like have a nice girl chat, go get a tattoo, like buy a lottery ticket, do all the things for Friday the 13th. I'm so excited.
This sounds amazing. I love it. I love that we're in a community where so many people embrace Friday the 13th. Because when I was growing up, really the only association with it was unlucky. So, you
Yes.
know, people would be like, oh, be careful. Oh, it's Friday the 13th. Oh, nightmare, Friday the 13th. And then you hit the witchcraft community and everyone's like, hey, Friday the 13th, tattoo, lottery ticket, enjoy yourself. Yeah, very, very awesome. Like switch up with that. Oh, I want a tattoo now. I was thinking about it the other day. Oh, you're encouraging me. Yeah, that's a good day to love. I'm glad you're starting out with me. I love talking to fellow pro readers, especially. Like I find it a very interesting. It's a very interesting field to work in. And there's certain conversations you have with other pro readers you just wouldn't have. You can't have anything like that conversation. Like you can talk to people who run their businesses in another completely different field, and you can overlap as business owners, but talking to fellow pro readers is like having a drink in the desert because there's some things that no one else will get. um,
Yeah.
yeah, I've had a reading from you, and I think I mentioned to you at the time, it was absolutely so nurturing. It was just so perceptive, so compassionate, and it was an email reading, and the wording you used was also completely gorgeous. So I must say, here and now, I've had a reading from Panda, well worth it. Can you describe to people what you feel like your pro reading style is?
Well, first of all, to get that type of compliment and praise from you is just like I'm gonna pass out. I might as well. I'm just done. I don't need anything else. I've done it, mom. Someone call and tell my mom I'm a success. I'm a success now. So thank you very much. That's amazing. But I think if I had to say I had a style, um, I almost never use spreads, which I know a lot of other pro readers have a lot of very set spreads. So people are always kind of weirded out by that. Other readers are. Um, and but I almost never use spreads, but I would say the foundation of all my readings is usually self-love. I always kind of start there, and then work through whatever the client's question is. But it's usually self-love and healing, just because there's never enough of it. And if you can start there, like whatever the problem is, if you start with that, usually the problem will kind of fix itself. You know what I mean? Or the answer comes afterwards. And so that's definitely, I would say, almost always is my foundation.
Mm, yeah, that's a really beautiful starting point as something to use as what should underline every card and what you're sort of driving at, the message underneath it. I think it's fair to say if you have a reading with a reader like that, every card will be nurturing. You know, all of the advice in it will be person-centered and nurturing. So it's a good way to start. Did you change your reading style much as you went along, or has it always been like that?
I think it's always been like that. When I first started, I felt really like I had to do the Celtic cross, and it had to be like this specific, very tied to um just like the rules, if you will, of tarot. But the more that I've gone, and even how I choose cards has changed. Um, and I think it's probably for most readers, like when you start reading, you're really into the traditional, like say if you start with the RWS or if you start with Thoth or, what are the Marseille. Um, you're very into that traditional image, imagery to like read. And then like the older I get, the more I like really abstract cards or really minimalist cards that don't have, as much on there, so that like I can just interpret and intuitively read and just go where it takes me. And but like, of course, when you're first starting, if you don't have all that, you'd kind of be like, where do I go from here? So that has changed and evolved over time. I definitely like kind of like the less is more now for the cards. um and less of the structure, less of the spreads and that kind of stuff too, I think. And then I've gotten to where, when I was first started, this is terrible. It's almost it's almost like the rude lady that doesn't have kids, that is like telling the mom that has 3 kids, like, I would never do that. So when I first started, I was like, oh, Oracle decks, I would never do that. And now, like, these are all Oracle decks.
I love Oracle decks myself as well. I've
I
got just
love
as many
them.
Oracle. Yeah, just as many Oracle
Love
as
them.
Tarot. So you started out as like quite a purist and only wanted like the 78 card strict system, tarot system. And what broke you into Oracle?
Oh gosh, I think someone gifted me an Oracle deck, and then that was it. Then I just kind of fell in love. And then pretty soon I was mixing decks like for my readings and using several different ones. And um, I definitely feel like I read better that way. I always use several different decks to do my readings. And I just really enjoy that. I love pairing decks together.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I love pairing as well. I actually had the same thing as you with Oracle. Somebody bought me. I'm pretty sure I was quite a purist too. I did not envision myself using Oracle. And yeah, somebody gifted me an Oracle deck to say thank you for a tarot reading that I'd done for them. And I was like, thanks. Okay, in my mind, well, okay. And then I looked at it, and 6 weeks later, I was just balls deep in Oracle. I was like, what else can I get from Oracle? This is great. Yeah, I really love them. And pairing tarot and oracle is awesome. Do you do that for clients?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
And I definitely, oh gosh, I don't know. I have so many Oracle decks. I absolutely love them now. And but I was just definitely, I've learned to like not listen to myself. Like I can't trust myself, because anytime I'm like, oh, like I can't stand, cute fuzzy decks, then I'm like, well, maybe I'll pick up just one in case I have a client that, you know what I mean? I used to be all shadow work decks, all the kind of darker kind of, and now I have bunny decks. And, so I just learned to like be very open, because anytime I'm like, oh, cat decks, like now I have 12 cat decks, or I'm like, oh, Oracle decks, like now I have 300. So it's just one of those things. Definitely be open to change and growth.
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny the amount of things you do that you said even a year before you wouldn't. Like I would never, if someone came along to me in like 2014 and said, one day you won't read reversals anymore, I'd be like, reversals are intrinsic to my tarot practice. And now I'm like, if I see a reverse card, yeah, I'm like, turn that round. I'm not into reverse cards at all. They just disrupt the reading. They don't look right at all. They interrupt my intuition about which warning elements are supposed to come through. That it's disconcerting if most of the cards are reversed. It's disconcerting for the querent. Like, no, 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 no. But I used to be such a purist about that, and I would teach people how to read reversals, not in a dogmatic way. But it's funny how far I've come. And like you also with the Oracle thing, I never would have thought I'd own as many Oracle decks as tarot decks, but you change, you get less rigid and more loosey goosey, and you start taking yourself and the tool a bit less seriously, because there'll always be a part of you that sees the seriousness of these cards and how profound and paradigm shifting they can be. But also, it's nice to have fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. And your intuition grows, and it gets stronger, and then you don't need that structure, anymore, because you know what the cards are telling you. You know what the message is, you know where it's going, and you can just feel it.
Well, you can feel it quite a bit because you don't use actually spread positions, which a lot of people say to me, I think I don't want to use spread positions anymore, but I'm quite nervous. I'm scared to trust myself to just lay cards and start riffing. So it can be scary for a lot of people. Would you give any advice to anyone who's like, I don't want to read spread positions, but how do I lay cards down and just start like weaving things together?
Um, I think I think because the Celtic cross, this is just my opinion, because it comes in the traditional booklet and it's like the OG. Everyone feels like they need to start there. And then, especially when people are new readers and you've got uprights and reversals, and you put all these cards down, and then it's kind of like overwhelming. You've got all of this stuff to remember, and what is this position? What is this? And I always just tell people, like, start with 2 cards. Just shuffle out 2 cards. Start with 3 cards. You don't have to start with 12 cards and then try to shift through everything. Like, just start with 3 cards and then move from there. And you know, like, because honestly, you can get so much information from the 3 cards that you lay out after you go through your meanings and your intuitive interpretation, and you go through, like, if you include color meanings or the numerology or the astrology, or just the traditional tarot meanings. That's a lot of information to give someone, to give, or for yourself. And so, yeah, just start with a couple cards, and yeah, don't start with all that big stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I never liked the Celtic cross. I remember
No.
learning it in my teens and being like, half of this isn't relevant to what I want. And like, I don't like this bridge card and the obstacle card and the significator. I didn't like that. I was thinking to myself, well, I don't need the significant. I know where I am right now. Like, it was just very odd. I don't like the arrangement of it. And I very quickly started just customizing it. But I came across quite a few people when I came online that were like, oh, I can just do what I want with it. And I'm like, yeah, fuck the Celtic cross. Like, it's just dull. And people were like, yeah, fuck the Celtic cross. I don't like it
Yeah.
either. Why am I chaining myself to the Celtic fucking cross? It's so dull. So it's funny. Like, a lot of people feel very beholden to it because it is in so many
Yeah.
of the books, and it is, like you said, it's the OG. So people were very like, are we really gonna just do our own thing? It was like the Celtic cross was like the playground bully, and I was like, come on, let's just overthrow them. Like, screw them, they're
Yeah.
bullshit.
So do you
Yeah.
use any spreads? Then, like, do
Yeah.
you have spreads when you read for people, like specific
Yeah.
ones? Yeah.
I do. I do. I have very set spreads that I design that I know are tried and tested that I like. But I also have this thing called a sacred patchwork reading, which you would love because it's just literally I take cards from 10 different decks and put them all together in a random mishmash, turn them over and start weaving the narrative together.
I love that.
You would be stupidly good at that because you have tons of decks, you don't read positions anyway, and you love seeing different imagery, and you already combine cards together. So yeah, you should get on the sacred patchwork gravy train because it's just literally like I just do whatever, I put it into an arrangement, turn them all over. And what's fascinating with sacred patchwork is the amount of cards that echo each other. I did a reading the other
Yes.
day that had strength in 3 separate cards because Oracle like borrows from the tarot tradition but weaves it differently. You'll get an Oracle card with strength, then the strength card, then the strength card from another tarot deck, and you're like, okay, strength is big, or whatever. So clusters of meanings come along in a sacred patchwork. It's amazing.
What's your favorite Oracle deck?
Favorite Oracle deck of all time is Oracle of Echoes by Anatorian. I love it,
Oh,
and
it's
I also like
gorgeous.
it's so good. It's so good, and I also like this one I've got you propped up on, Vintage Wisdom Oracle by my darling
Oh, I
friend
love
Victoria
that.
Mosley. I love this one so much. It's just very, very vintage postcard, old movie style vibes. What's your favorite Oracle deck?
My favorite Oracle deck. So don't come for me. My favorite one is it I don't know what it's called. It's the deck from Teal Swan. And I
Okay.
know that some people say that she's great, and some people say she's a cult leader. I'm not in a cult, but I really like the deck.
Yeah,
the
no, I love the Osho Zen tarot. It doesn't mean I'm into Osho. I
yeah,
wasn't into Osho. I'm not into Osho, but I'll take the deck. The deck's riveting.
yeah,
I'll separate the art from the artist, and he wasn't even the artist. But Teal Swan, in fact, was the artist, right? Because isn't that the one that looks kind of like stained glass windows? Is that what it
yes.
looks like? It is beautiful. Very,
I
very
love
pretty.
that deck.
Yeah, it looks really nice. I've seen it a few times before, and it is very attractive. I mean, to me, like if I can take a tool and utilize it, it doesn't need to be under the umbrella of someone's philosophy or anything like that. So no, I'm
Yeah.
not coming for you. Make no apology for what you're using. Yeah, what do you have a favorite tarot deck? To like asking you to choose a favorite
Oh
child.
gosh. I will I will ride or die for the Rider-Waite Smith always.
Yeah.
I have like glow in the dark Rider-Waite Smith. I have vintage Rider-Waite Smith. I have cat Rider-Waite Smith. I mean,
Mhm.
I people are like, why do you need that one? I'm like, well, because I need it. Because this one, if I get one more, this one might fix my depression. So we got to do it. We got to buy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, if you don't walk through that door, you'll never know. That could
Yeah.
be the depression cure, exactly. Have you seen the holographic Rider-Waite Smith?
Yes.
I want it. I really
Me
want
too.
it. Someone said the cardstock is not good, and I was thinking, I don't care if the cardstock is literal toilet paper. It's fucking holographic, is what it is.
Tarot Collectibles has like a sparkly holographic one on Indiegogo right now that is gorgeous.
Oh wow, that sounds so
And
beautiful.
their
Oh.
cardstock is nice.
Yeah, it's good we want the good cardstock if we can. I don't want to waste. I want all my decks to last till I'm dead and then to be sent out to people that watch my channel so they can use them. Like, I do not like the idea of having to throw a deck away because I used it to the point of destruction. That should never happen. Like,
Do
that
you
cardstock is
riffle?
not acceptable. I do, I riffle, but I don't, but I'm not. I'm not accusing other people of being rough with their decks, but I've seen other people riffle, and my God, I do not bend things back that far. And like, I just, we're talking about reading here, you understand?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I am quite stunned when people put their knuckles in the back of the deck and really pull it back. I'm like, damn, you have a lot of faith in that cardstock. I just don't pull things back that far. I've also got tiny hands, so I do riffle, yes, but I've seen people riffle with the enthusiasm that I do not show, if that makes sense.
Do you this is like kind of a good and bad, but are you on TikTok?
I am, but I very rarely post on there.
So I watched the tarot readers on TikTok, and so like one of my favorite things is like, so when somebody's shuffling, this happens a lot, but the people on TikTok, the two things that I see is like they'll be like, did you see that card just jumped out for you? Like, and I'm like, what is that shuffle? Like, that was bizarre. Like, you just lost like all 78 cards. And then the other one is like where they shuffle so aggressively that like I feel like afraid by the time they're done like shuffling. I'm like, why are you so angry?
Like, really passive aggressive shuffle. Like, oh yeah, I'll read your fucking cards.
Yeah, I'm just like, are your cards gonna survive? What's going on?
Who hurt you? Why are you hurting your deck? Yeah, I think you can't. If people want to read cards that jump, that's fine, but it's got to be a nice tight shuffle for the jump to mean anything. Because if you're sloppy shuffling, obviously you're going to get jumpers, and they don't count. Yeah, for sure. Oh, it's funny. I was I was following TikTok readers for a while. I don't know if it's just a different kind of culture and vibe over there, or if it's because you have to condense the point you're making into so short a time. But I saw a lot of things over there that I just found incredibly objectionable from people saying that they were teaching tarot. I remember the last straw where I was like, I'm not watching any tarot content on TikTok anymore. I'm sure there is good stuff, but I was not seeing it. And I was trying to find it and I wasn't seeing it. Again, it's partly because of having to condense your point into such a small thing. It's
Yeah.
not possible to give a lesson effectively like that, especially not on a tool like tarot, which is in itself its own symbolic language. So it's, you can't teach something in a minute or however long you've got. That's how little I post on TikTok. But I remember this girl saying, you know, not girl disparagingly, I call all women girls and all men boys. I don't know why. It's an affectionate thing. But she
Yeah.
was saying, if someone tells you that 10 of wands has a positive meaning, they're just bullshitting you. Look at it. Look at the guy. He's walking up the hill with loads of stuff that he's carrying. It's obviously not a good situation. So if someone's like, oh, this is so positive, you know that they're a bullshitter that hasn't learned the tool. And I was like, every card has a spectrum of light and shadow, and what you're looking at there is a harvest. That it can be very
Yeah.
good. It's also backbreaking, arduous labor, but look, it depends how you look at it. Yeah, that really bothered me, and I nearly wrote a comment, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to put my energy into trying
Save
to
your
explain.
energy. Yep.
Oh yeah, if this, you get the teacher you're ready for at the time, and I was worried about her teaching so confidently something like that, but then I was like, you know what, it's just not my thing to get into. I'm just going to leave it.
Yep.
And I did, and you know what, I chose peace, and I had a better day.
Yep. Yeah, your piece isn't worth it. And um that's how I also feel about like the witch talk on TikTok there. Like there's a lot of things where I'm like, no, those crystals actually shouldn't go in water, and like that's not, you can't put that on your skin, and like there's like a lot of things, but yeah, you just have to leave it because your energy is better spent elsewhere. But also my thought is always like, even if people come to tarot and witchcraft through an aesthetic or through maybe a teacher that isn't the most worldly, um, it may lead them, to a deeper spiritual experience down the road. So like let's just get here. If it's trendy, that's great. Like let's just get you guys here so that, when you decide like, oh, I need something more, I need something to nourish me, then you already have a direction to go at least.
Oh, yeah, I could not agree more with that. I really think that's true, because so many witches I know now who write books and do amazing things in their community, or they have a really strong practice. They freely admit they got here from the craft in the 90s.
Yeah.
They never thought about it a day in their life before, and then they were like, you know what, this looks great. Like, where do I go to read about this? So, and it's just a Hollywood movie. I mean, it's not just a Hollywood movie. It's legendary,
It's
iconic.
iconic.
Iconic. Rachel True replied to something I wrote on Twitter once, and I had to have a fucking lie down.
Oh my gosh.
I was done for the day. I just went to bed. I was like, I can't. That's all I needed to achieve. Oh, it was just majestic. I was like, she knows I exist. So yeah, that film is amazing, but it's amazing the amount of witches that are like, I came here from that. I had no idea this is what I wanted to do then, and it hasn't harmed them any whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, definitely it's like the good and bad of the internet. I mean, I love the connection, and then you're connecting witches from around the world and different practices and different ages. And that's really what I wish could happen more. But like, even me, I'm probably, no, not probably. I wake up with back pain. I am too old to be on TikTok. But I wish that you could connect like those younger people with the crones, that aren't on the technology, aren't doing the TikTok dances, that kind of thing. Because there's so much wisdom, I wish we could bring them together. But even like our friend Whiskey is much younger than me. I love Whiskey. She's much younger than me, but she taught me that she does her money manifestation on her phone with her banking app. I'm still doing it old school. And so I had no idea. You know what I mean? That's amazing. And so much easier, very like, very 2022. So like I've learned a lot. But yeah, it's just whatever gets people here, whether if it's trendy. For me, it was Matilda. That's what got me here. And so I started with Matilda, but it turned into something deeper. And ultimately, I was able to support myself through, you know, the loss of a parent and, these different life changes because I have this spiritual practice and aware of how to, put in self-care and nourishing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, however you get here, just get here.
Yeah, yeah. Do you in your sort of from your perspective, do you feel like it's a kind of a one way where older witches, maybe in their 30s, 40s, are happy to learn from like Gen Z, but Gen Z are not seeking out the sort of millennial or even older like crone witches in return. There isn't a It's kind of a one way thing where younger witches are accepted, their wisdom is accepted, their perspective is respected by the older crowd, but it's not the same in reverse.
No, I mean, I think that it's pretty open for the most part. Of course, I mean, in our community, we run into all kinds of ridiculous gatekeeping that still happens. Um, but I think the disconnect is with the technology. I mean, like all of the younger witches are coming into TikTok and witch talk and that type of thing. And a lot of the crones, that's not their platform. I don't even fully know how to use TikTok. I'm not cool enough, you know. So I think that's just the disconnect. I don't really know how to do anything about that, I guess. But yeah, you can always learn something from everybody that you come in contact with, whether it's something that you don't want to do or, useful information, because people will be like, well, I don't have anything to learn from, someone that's younger than me or this and that. Well, that's not necessarily true. And even if it's, not your cup of tea, you can learn how you don't want to do something.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And also, I would argue that you're exceptionally cool. And if you wanted to use TikTok enough, you would have learned how to use it. I mean, that's kind of my thing. I don't actually like the platform. Like for what
Yeah.
I do, yeah, for the kind of material I put out, it is very dense. It is supposed to be long form. It's not a mistake. When people leave me comments being like, you could have said this in 10 minutes, I'm like, then I wouldn't have made it. I don't want to say something in 10 minutes. I
Yeah.
want to sit down with a cup of tea and get really deep into it. It's not my desire to make a piece of content that's a minute long. It just doesn't do it for me. And I think a lot of witches I see that don't use TikTok to communicate what they're doing, or readers that don't, it's because they don't want to. Simply put, it's not
Yeah.
a platform that appeals to them.
Well, and that's because your foundation is healing, is actual healing, and it's
Mm,
real and authentic, and you can't put that in a 30-second video, when you're trying to really connect with someone. And that's the type of work you do, and it's not just, a lot of the readings that are on TikTok that are 30 seconds are like, oh, you got the Ace of Cups, you're going to meet a new love. That was the reading. That's it. Like, and if that's all you need, that's great. But if you really need, you know shadow work and healing and to get in touch, that reflection, that's not going to come in 30 seconds.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I really love the fact that you talk about shadow work on your channel, and you've talked about things that some people will talk about and some people won't, like spiritual bypassing, like shadow work, like healing from really tough times, like racism, things of that nature. Do you find it easy to address these things that other people are hesitant to address, or is it something you had to sort of like come to over time?
um yeah, I've just do it because we have to. If we don't talk about things, they're not going to change. And then also, with the different things, there's like almost, as you do shadow work, you find these things that like you just have to bring the light to it, right? Everyone thinks shadow work is so scary and then nobody wants to do it and like this and that, but it's really necessary, and it's the balance of the light and the dark that everybody has, as you know. But yeah, so just it's necessary to talk about these things, and especially the spiritual bypassing. It's being a person of color, there's a lot of things that I can't hide from. You just have to live them. And so, if I want better for the tarot community, if I want better for the world and my children, then we have to talk about these things even if they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What would you like to see change about tarot community and witchcraft community?
um definitely the gatekeeping, I think, and um if we can move away from cultural appropriation, of course. Um, yeah, and just um, I shared that video that was like, the witchcraft community. It was like a joke. Was it, there? It's easier to serve something like if it's a little humor, but it was like the witchcraft community for being so intuitive. He'll really have a problem identifying Nazis. So maybe you could put down the tarot cards and identify a dog whistle, Samantha. And so um yeah, sometimes I shouldn't share things. But anyways, so I shared that, but it just, yeah, those type of things like getting to the bottom of those so we can move away from the white supremacy culture and the cultural appropriation, and just get back to um the old ways, the path and authenticity. I think because a lot of times you enter into this community, or at least I did. I entered into the community thinking like these are tarot readers and everyone talks about higher vibration and everyone says, everyone signs their post love and light, and this is home, this is such a safe. And then I've run into so many people that had racist remarks or actions and different stuff like that, and or um like phobic. And it's like this community, just because it's a spiritual community, isn't automatically a safe space. You're still going to run into people that, I don't know, discriminate because you're queer or because you're Black or because you're indigenous. And yeah, so I wish that we could work on those things, especially our community, the witchcraft community and the tarot community. That's what I would want for us, is to continue to work on those things. And it'll just help us, like, not only personally, but all the people that we touch their lives too and read for. I mean, it'll just help us all grow.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I like any conversations happening around that, around like, greater diversity, but like in terms of content creators, in terms of people writing books, getting decks published, the actual illustration style being diverse, like, and yeah, the cultural appropriation thing I think is important. I wanted to touch on that in my book, because I worry that the idea of like spiritual anarchy and rebel witch attitude would lead people to believe that I think you can just take whatever you want. Nothing is sacred in that way. Nothing is off limits. And actually, I think the rebel witch attitude, for the way I set it up and the philosophy around it, it's much more about being creative and individual. There's nothing creative or individual about ripping off from a culture you don't know, never spent a day in your life in. You don't like understand anything about it. You just take something away from all of its roots, its context, its rich cultural nuances, and whack it in your practice. That, to me, that's the opposite of what a rebel witch would do. A rebel witch would be like, that is that is fire, that inspires me. How can I make that me? How can I take that and make that something that is about my personal practice? Why does it inspire me? What is it in me that inspires me? And how can I make that unique to me, rather than like rip it off like from a culture that are already struggling to be allowed to preserve it themselves? Like, there's nothing rebellious or like spiritually anarchic about that. That's crap. That's just copying. It's copying, and it's not even real. It's like it's like a facade in an old cowboy movie. There's no shop behind there, there's no bar behind there. It's just like, I took this because it looked cool, no idea what I'm doing, there we go, put that in there. I think that's the opposite of spiritual anarchy.
Yes. Yeah. And I have you ever, I often have insomnia, but like, have you ever just like, you panic buy, like, because you see all these decks, or like you just, so like I saw everybody was posting about, there was a like a Black Lives Matter deck, and like the images were really beautiful and people were posting about it in one of the big groups, tarot groups, and I immediately just clicked buy, and I didn't look at anything else. I didn't, like, we're just within seconds at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I got the deck and I was flipping through it. And then the death card is like an actual picture of George Floyd.
Yeah.
And then I was like looking, and the deck was created by a white man, and it's the Black Lives Matter tarot that he's selling and he's making money, and I gave my money and none of it goes back to benefit people of color. And it's almost like exploiting the picture of George Floyd on the ground with the police on top of him. I mean, that it shouldn't be the death card. It shouldn't be in there. It's inappropriate. And I was so disappointed in myself for like, I just, sent $50 that like I could have given to an indigenous creator, or at least, something that was authentic instead of making money off of, black pain. And so yeah, I've really like now I like really slow down to just do my own research. That was my fault for just clicking buy like that. But yeah, for looking for that authenticity and that the real spiritual anarchist.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I saw the scandal around that deck. If I remember correctly, because it was a while ago now, I believe the Justice card was an image of Breonna Taylor. Again, like what the hell? Unless you're going to be donating to the fund around that, or communicating with the family at the very least to utilize her imagery like that, that's also completely out of line. And I would say that, just from the perspective thinking about how you ended up buying it pulls on, like you said, it's a manipulation of black pain. It would pull on your heartstrings particularly. It would be something where you wouldn't think you need to do your due diligence on that. You would never think anybody would create something like that with those layers of just inappropriate, unfeeling imagery in there. I mean, we would always hope that nobody would make a tarot deck, connect it to BLM, and not be donating to black organizations and like the pro-black movement. And I would, if I bought that, I would be stunned to open it up and see that imagery. I'd be like, what the hell is going on? Probably only at that point would I be like, who made this,
Yeah.
and like, what is happening here? Yeah, this can't have been made by anyone that has any fucking business making it. So I think these things do happen, and I came across it because there was a debate about it. There were people posting on Instagram being like, "Have you seen this? I just received mine and it's fucked." And so I guess in that way I was sort of saved from having to do my own due diligence. But I think it's easily done because it's about, you have faith in people and you give people the benefit of the doubt and you assume this is going to be a good thing done for a good reason. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because more and more over time I also have been like, that's not necessarily the case. Like you said earlier, spiritual space doesn't equal safe space, and you do have to do your due diligence. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with that deck, that just, I don't know. So now I definitely do more research before I purchase, or like to make sure where my money is going. Because again, unfortunately, we live in a capitalist society, so money is king. And it's what speaks. And yeah, I got that deck and it was almost like traumatizing, but it also like goes to how starved we are for diversity, because I saw one card of a black tarot deck and I was like, yes, I'll buy it, bought it. I didn't look, and it just, we're starving for that imagery. And so, yeah, I definitely try to do my research, but then also ask of diversity for my decks. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah, it's time.
totally, absolutely. And I fully I wouldn't blame yourself for that at all. I think that was very, unfortunately, cleverly done, manipulatively done at a time when everybody wanted to do what they could. And like, you know, lots of people would get that with good intention, and lots of people whom it really mostly directly affects would not expect it to be anywhere near that cruel. It was a cruel deck. Yeah, totally unfeeling. So yeah, I wouldn't blame yourself for that at all. I think that's totally on the creator. I put all the blame on the creator for that. Like, it's easy to see why that ended up in your cart. It's a lot harder to see why he thought, how he could have the sheer audacity, nay, the sheer caucasity to make that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
Oh my god.
exactly. And luckily, in all my decks and all my time, I think I've only gotten two decks that were cruel like that. I think that in all of my time and all my decks that have come and gone, I think only two I've had that were like that.
Are you prepared to say what the other one was, or would you rather we skip over that?
Oh gosh, I don't even. know what the name of the other one was. It was just, oh gosh, I wrote a review on it for Indie Deck Review, and there was a couple of people that really came after me. But the author of the tarot deck had so many chances to do something really great. So like he had um a muggle card, and I was like, oh my gosh, Harry Potter, I'm so this, yes. And so then you got the muggle card, and it was like a diverse family, and then his description was like, the diverse family is always, like basically they're always in poverty because they never choose anything else, like being less than, and they're not like magical and like this and that. And then the I'll never not be able to see this image, but the world card was a woman, and right in the caption, it didn't need to be said in the caption, but like she had one arm that was cut off, and like one breast that was missing, and it was a symbolization for like the ravagedness of the world, right? And then it opened with a once beautiful woman, now the R word, like now blank and broken.
Oh my God.
And I was like, only a man, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but only a man would say that a woman has no value after she's been sexually assaulted, and would put this as the world card. And so, anyways, I wrote a disclaimer, and I said, anyone that is a survivor of cancer, of sexual assault, of, you know, like you guys need to know before you pick up this deck. Like, because
Yes.
none of these images are shown on the Instagram, on the website. Like, no, no, no. Like, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't, in my review, tell the readers, like, here's your trigger warning, like here's these things. Because if you've ever had breast cancer, if you've ever, you know, been a survivor of assault, like you need to know these things. And oh my gosh, the creator, he like told me how small minded I was, and like how I didn't have the perception, and I just couldn't. But anyways, I've only ever gotten 2 decks in my time that were cruel like that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, do you know, the thing is, this is why I really wanted to talk to you, because like I said earlier, you say the things that need to be said. You talk about the stuff that other people might want to skirt around or just not mention, or be like, well, that card triggered me, but I can't say anything. It's like, no, no, I must say something, because somebody else is going to open this in a minute, who's going to drop it on the floor and feel like shit for the rest of the day. Um,
Yeah.
it's so important to say these things. And just the notion of you being small-minded and not having the perception is just, that's actually made me slightly, it's made me slightly angry, but in a way where it's good, because I'm happy to be angry about that and feel like I'm going to continue on my journey to try and make sure that problematic things are addressed in the community. That's such a problematic card. When you described it to me, I was like, oh, oh my God, that's hurtful. Like, yeah, that's terrible. Like, either of those decks, opening them up and seeing the cards we've just been talking about, would ruin at least my day. At least my day. If not, like, continue beyond that. It's disturbing. Yeah, it's not great. That's not good at all. Well, I will have a look at that review later. I would like to read it. Darling, I'll let you go because I know I've had you for an hour, and I know that it's your Friday 13th and it's going to be very special. You're going to go and get your tattoo and everything. But before I say goodbye, I'm going to let everybody know I'm going to leave all the links for all of your stuff below, like where you can go to get a reading from Panda, all of the social media. Follow Panda on Instagram. If you don't, then you need to. But is there anything you want us to know about? Anything you want to sort of give us a heads up on?
Um, yep, so everything is Arcane Panda. I just finished, let's see here. I don't know if you guys will be able to see. So I just finished this project here with the Queering the Deities with Nick Phillips. If you guys want to check that out, he is on Instagram. So I portrayed Medusa,
You
and that was really important to me. So that project, we just finished that. My print just came in, but definitely check out Nick Phillips. He's an amazing artist. And if anybody wants to participate in the Queering the Deities series, you can sign up on his page, but he's a beautiful artist. And then I guess you know what? It's Friday the 13th. I'm here with my idol, Kellyanne Maddox. So I'll give you guys a super, super top secret. Hasn't been heard before. So I'll just show you one image. This is the Black Goddess Within Oracle deck. Definitely make sure that you're following the Black Goddess Within. That's I guess my next project.
Oh wow.
I won't say any more than that because I'll leave it to the deck creator to say. I'll give the announcement, but definitely be following them because we will be going to LA next week for an Oracle deck photo shoot. So that's the most I can give you. It's top secret, and you guys will have to follow along to see the finished product.
Amazing.
So
Oh yeah, I want you in as many decks as possible. I'm very excited. This is really cool. Okay, awesome. I will follow that because I'm only just hearing about this as well, and I'll put the information down below so people can follow. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I've hugely enjoyed this. It's had a really
yeah.
positive impact on me, and I love that this will be up for people to watch. Thank you so much, darling.
Yes, thank you. This is such a big honor. Thank you, and I hope that you have a beautiful Friday the 13th.
Thank you, darling.